You want to make an intro?
Yeah, I think we'll do an intro.
All right.
All
Awesome.
right. So welcome, guys. Welcome back. It's been a while, but we managed to snag an interview with one of the finalists at the GenCon 25th anniversary tournament. So that's going to be coming up in a short while. Heard it was an exciting game. But for now, Mo, why don't you tell us what you've been up to lately?
Sure. You know, I've been very excited about this GenCon thing, and the fact that it's Twilight Imperium's 25th anniversary. To be frank with you, I thought it would be a great way to hopefully score some really cool stuff. But yes, GenCon and the TI 25th anniversary tournament was awesome. I had a blast. I went. It was 3 days of TI, very intense against people who knew what they were doing. And but it wasn't the first time I've done 3 games in a row, so luckily I was prepared for that. But yeah, it was awesome. I guess we're gonna dive right into it.
Yeah, let's dive right in. So
yeah,
first game.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I want to start off by saying that I had a tremendous experience. I made a Facebook post about this, but I had a tremendous experience. The FFG guys were great. You know, people like Josh Massey and Xander, people that we've sort of, you know, like Josh, we see him a lot on YouTube. Well, I met him in person. Real great guy. Just like he is on YouTube, he is like that in person. He loves the game. And everybody at the staff there, you know, they were just all pleasant and made the experience really wonderful. And on top of that, the players that I interacted with were great. Some of them, I walked away with some friends. I mean, there are some people that I legitimately made friends with that near and far, right? Many that were all over the country and some were all over the world. I met one guy from the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
Who invited me to a TI game in the Netherlands. And he was great. But yeah, so the experience with the people was fantastic. And it was just great to be there and see TI and see all of this stuff, and have they had a bunch of tables all set out, and every table they had to punch out all the stuff the night before.
Wow.
I mean, they had to open all these boxes and get everything punched out. And we were talking,
yeah,
how many games were running at the same time? A lot. And they had the mats, the brand new mats were all laid out.
Wow.
And it was great. The one criticism I had, and it was a minor one, although the last day it really made itself a big deal for me, was that they randomized everything. So the draft picking races was randomized. The locations where you sat was randomized, and it was the same map. It was essentially the 6-player map from the POK expansion. And so essentially they laid out that map and they just randomized where the home systems went. They gave everybody they passed out the faction sheets 3 at a time to each person and said, okay, pick one of the 3.
Okay.
And that's essentially how it works. It was incredibly random. No multi draft pick, none of that stuff. That was my one criticism, mainly because it really did, for the players who kept playing, it did, you know, for me anyway, it kind of was unfortunate, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But otherwise, it was great, and most of the time the games took almost all day, so I didn't really get to enjoy the con as much, except for the last day. I took the lunch hour, and instead of having lunch, I went and just walked around and checked out the con, which was very cool, by the way. Gen Con is awesome. The Indianapolis, or the Indiana Convention Center, was large and spacious. Mask mandate was in effect, and everybody was wearing their masks, and it was great. It was a great experience, and I had a lot of fun playing TI, and I got some goodies as a result. Yeah.
So okay, so you got there, first game.
Yeah. Yes. So I got there.
So were the other players experienced? Are we talking just some people who wandered in?
So I'll be honest with you. Yeah. So some players were experienced. some were not. The game I was in, I think I messaged you. The game I was in, everybody was a shark. They all had played the game before, and I knew it. Although within earshot of the next game, I could hear somebody explaining to somebody certain things about the game. And I think what it is some people had not played POK before. I don't know why you would sign up like people. So it was a matter of showing them how the agent works and the exploration and things like that. So clearly, and there were I've met a few players who had not played POK, and this was their first time playing POK.
Oh, wow.
But in my games, at least the first game, everybody knew what they were doing. I met a guy, Sean Ireland. He's actually leads up the New York chapter, I guess, of the TI sort of community. Great guy, very, very good. But yeah, first game was crazy.
So were they doing Codex 3? Was that in
no
there?
codex, no codices.
No
codices.
Oh, no wonder you didn't. Oh, okay.
We'll talk about that later. But
now.
there were no codices. It was POK. It was vanilla POK, right?
Yeah, I guess yeah. Oof.
Yeah, so that made a difference.
That makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. So, I'll tell you, like the first game, one of the craziest things that happened in the first game. So the way they made it was they had the first the highest 3-point players. When somebody reaches 10, the next 2 players would advance. So they made it so that 3 players advanced from every game, which essentially gave us the 24 players for the next game. And then the 24 players, we had 2 players advancing from every game, which gave us the 8. But the first game we had the 3 players advance, and it was one of the weirdest things because TI, you play it for the 10 points. That's what it mattered. This was different.
Who are you? Who are you playing as?
The first game I was playing as God, I forget now.
Soul.
It was the Soul. Thank you. Yes, Federation Soul. That was the first game, and I picked the Soul because I'm like, if I'm going to be playing POK vanilla, I'm going to be playing a faction that can hold its own. But ultimately, it was myself and another guy at 8 points, and a third person. The third person was at 9, and so it was right down to the end. But we thought we were going to go to another round until an agenda came out. Seed of an Empire. Seed of an Empire, if you recall, if the 4 vote gives the person in the highest point lead a point, and against gives the lowest point lead a point, the lowest in points. Well, the 2 of us that were at 8 and the person at 9 looked at each other and said, we could just end this. So, and it was the second agenda. A lot of others had voted. Luckily, the 3 of us had enough votes to go 4. And so the 9-point player got 10. The other 2 of us were at 8, and we all 3 advanced.
Wow.
And there were the other 3 players. It was kind of like sorry guys, I know you thought you could make it happen in the next round, but we ended it at the status phase, the agenda phase. And so the 3 of us advanced, and it was one of the weirdest ways to win the game, because I would have gone for another round and tried to win, right? But at this point, I was like, no, I just want to advance. I want to keep playing TI. Right. That's all. My goal was to keep playing. So that was the first way to advance, and it was very, very interesting. The second game, I'll tell you, I was playing Mahat, and we'll talk. I want you to ask me some questions too, but the second game.
Let's go through the second game. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the finals, but the second game sounds bonkers off the wall.
Yes. We had a player that it was almost a power 6 kind of game. Everybody there was very good.
You were Mahat.
I was Mahat, thank God. Titans was in the game. There was the Argent, and the Argent player was he was kind of new, I guess. Not really. I don't think he knew what he was doing, but he was definitely a little bit more passive about the Titans. As a matter of fact, they swapped supports within 5 minutes of the game. Within 5 minutes, we just looked. All of a sudden, they swapped supports.
The
Titans play, and we looked and we're like, okay. And then, of course, as soon as that happened, the player next to me was playing SAR, and he was like, "Hey, swap supports." And I was like, and I'm a Hawk, right? So that's the other thing. I'm like, well, I can't swap supports with you before I take one of your fleet tokens.
Right.
I'm like, I need that. So he kept bugging me about it. He's like, oh, swap supports. By the way, he's a great guy. I ended up being friends with him. Yeah. But I was like, let me first take a destroyer, and then we'll swap supports. And then the other 2, of course, swap supports. And the Titans player immediately ripped into his other neighbor, the Nomad. and successfully too. And before you know it, I look at and before the middle of the game had even arrived, the Titans it felt like they had half the map, half the galaxy to themselves, free reign, because the Argent player kind of just sat back in their slice and they swap sports, and then the Titans player just ripped into Nomad and had this thing. So I'm sitting there and I'm on the other side of the board, and I'm going, somebody's got to do something about this Titans player, right? And by the way, great respect, in case he watches this, a great respect to the Titans player, really good guy named Elam. He was in the final, and very, very good at the game. I shook his hand. I told him, you're a formidable player, but he also had a formidable faction.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
and that's the thing. Like, you've seen me play Titans. Titans in the right hands are devastating.
Oh, I hate them. I hate them so much.
And you have to. And I remember what I told you. You got to keep them in check. Well, nobody kept them in check, and that was rather unfortunate. So the second game, that guy Titans, he ended up winning that game, but I was able to advance. I was the second player to advance with him. And luckily, and then I was playing Mahawk, and it really helped that I was playing Mahawk. But yeah, it was a very, very
well. Didn't you go
game.
against didn't you turn your back on your support friend?
Yeah. And so I had a great game. I was doing well, and then at one point I had 2 times. By the way, this is crazy.
Yeah.
People saw this at the very early onset of the game. I attacked Mechatol with 4 cruisers, upgraded cruisers, 4 upgraded cruisers that each had a fighter with it, and the other 3 had infantry. And the person on Mechatol was holding Mechatol with a carrier, 2 fighters, and a single infantry.
Wow.
Right? What are my odds?
Yeah.
Good, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, everything died.
Oh,
he rolled all 9s. He rolled all 9s. He rolled
oh my
all
gosh.
9s. He rolled 5 9s total.
Wow.
And
well, he had those special weighted TI dice they gave out, right?
Everybody watched in horror as somehow.
Oh my God.
4 cruisers.
Yeah.
With a fighter and 3 infantry.
Wow.
Failed. Just
wow.
And he lost nothing. And so everybody, and I looked and I was like,
yeah.
It was like, okay, all right, fine. That was early on.
Right.
Same game. At the end, I was going for my 2-point objective, which involved taking a home. Part of the 2 points was taking a home system. Mm-hmm. And the Argent player seemed like the best person to go for. And this time around, it was a different player, by the way. So I sent 4 cruisers with same deal.
Yeah.
Because of my fleet pool. And same deal, he had a carrier and 2 fighters. In the same game, the same thing happened.
No.
And people watched in horror as my plan foiled. And I sat back, and that was towards the end of the game. That was my 2 points. I sat back in my chair, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Texted my wife, and I was like, hey, listen, I'm going to call you in a little bit. This game is probably done. I'm going to, and she sent me a message. She sent me 2 messages that I shared with the group, and they all cracked up. She said, if you're going down, take them down with you. She said, light that shit up. And I was like, okay. I put my phone down, and I was like, all right. Okay. So I got right back into the game. And I had this crazy idea of my buddy had, he was a great guy, and I felt bad because we had actually started becoming friends. And he had my support and I had his. And I realized that I could just rip into his system because he was the SAR and make it work. So I had a secret objective about taking a legendary planet. Making an example of their world. So I immediately attacked, and he was like, oh, I'm like, I lost my support, but I gained the point right back from the make an example of their world. And then I had a status phase secret objective, which was to take a legendary planet, which he took that. And then I also the 2-pointer, which was take a home system. I took one of his home systems, asteroids. And that was that, and it ended up getting me to be able to win and move on.
You and Titans, basically you and Titans.
Me and Titans.
Wow.
And so that was kind of a real eking out a win that I just did not. It looked like it had run away from me, and I eked it out, and I felt pretty good about it. And every day that we won, we got a different set of new color ships.
Wow.
So they have these colors, and I asked Josh Massey, he was there, and I was like, Josh, oh, can we buy these? Because we were only getting one set. So like whatever we picked, like whatever color, like first day, I think I was green because I really wanted green. So they gave us the green set, and they said if you want to swap it out for a different color, you can. Second day, I played a red Mahawked, and so they gave us a red set, which was really cool. They look like
That's
these
amazing.
Jolly Ranchers. They're like these translucent color ships. They're really cool. So I was like, great. Every time I advance, I'm going to get a set of these things, which was very, very cool, and I appreciated that. So I got that. And so I was glad because I'm like, great, I got another set. I got red and green now. And we advanced, and then we advanced to the final round, which was eight players. And I didn't know who had advanced. By the way, the other fun thing about it was there was a husband and wife team, or the husband and wife, not team, husband and wife that were there. They were both TI players, and they both in separate games advanced to the final stage.
Wow.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty impressive. I told them that was relationship rules right there.
Yeah, seriously.
Like to get your partner to love and play TI, get into a tournament, and have both of you in separate games advance to the final round. Well done. I think the guy's name was Adam and Bethany. That was good on them. Like that was cool. Yeah. So that was day 2.
You got a mat too, I heard.
So what happened is we were curious what we get for making it to the final. And they all told us that everybody who, everybody, the other thing they mentioned that everybody was getting was an exclusive set of dice, silver dice for TI. And I asked about these ships because I asked them, I'm like, can we get more of these ships? Can we buy them? And they said you can't buy them. They're exclusive to the tournament. And so were the dice. And so it was kind of a way for FFG to be like, thanks for coming to this tournament. So the dice hadn't made it. They're on a ship somewhere. So they took our email, they're going to send it to us. And then the ships, of course, were like, oh, these are exclusive. The mat, they told everybody who had made it to round 2 got the brand new mat, which I've now collected myself. Yes. So these are apparently, I've had people ask me if they're available. And they're not. Apparently, they're a couple months away because of supply chain issues. Like the shipment is a problem. It's not FFG's fault. They're just trying to get them. So they only had a limited quantity, but everyone got one of these.
Wow.
Which was very, very cool. So I was like, at this point, when they mentioned that we were all getting a mat, I was incredibly happy, and the dice. And then on day 8, day 3 with the 8-player game, they told us that, they told us that we would be getting a full set of these ships.
Wow.
These colors.
Wow.
And I was like, that's awesome. I'm already like happy. I'm like, I'm walking away with a mat, full set of the colors, the dice. At this point, I'm like, whether win or lose, this has been great. This has been great. So the FFG staff really made it awesome. They made it fun. The prizes, if you will, for being there and for participating were great. Overall was really, really, really great. And then there was the final
day 8. So final tournament.
Yes, the final day. The final day was interesting because they got all 8 of us. We sat down. They just passed out the sheets.
What time did you guys start?
So we started officially. The game started around 9:30.
Okay. Wow.
9:30 a.m. By the time we set up and this and that and that and that. But everybody got three sheets of races, and we had to pick. And I had a choice of, and I've been kicking myself over the past couple of days. But I had a choice of the extra, Mahawked again, and the Hakan. I was leaning towards. In the beginning, I was leaning towards Hakan, but I realized, and in the beginning, but like Hakan with 8 players and the wheeling and dealing, my thought was it's gonna be a lot. So, and I had played Mahawked already, and I'm like, I'm gonna play Mahawked again, I should have because it's POK and it's no courtesy.
Now that you told me there's no Codex 3, you did have the extra Codex 3 is pretty strong. So I don't think it's a bad pick.
Well, no, I picked extra, but there were no codices.
Right.
So the extra didn't have, they were just the vanilla extra.
Okay.
With the spin to win hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Which by the way came clutch. I mean, I was able
Yeah.
to score pick points off the agenda phase. I
Mhm.
drew mutiny, and you know,
Wow.
but I picked extra, and I believe it was a bad pick
Okay.
compared to everybody else.
Did you
Mainly
know what
because
everybody else was picking, or did
I
they just?
did, I did. I kind
Oh
of waited and
wow.
saw what everybody else was picking. So
Okay.
we had a Yssarl player, which is
Yeah.
why I should have been Mahawked for the action cards at least,
Mhm.
and I had a hard time really trading with people because of the 8-player map. It was really hard to reach people, so Hakan would have been great. Part of my frustration was that I looked around the table and everybody was making deals with their neighbors. And then of course because of the random draft, I ended up being stuck between the Argent
Again.
and Titans
Oh
by the same, who was the
no.
same player.
Oh no.
The same player got Titans, except this time I was sitting next to him.
Oh.
On top of that, and
So
again, no shade against this guy. I mean, he did really good. But on top
Right.
of that, the guy who was playing Argent was his friend.
Oh no. Oh no.
And I'm in between
Yeah.
these two.
So you're
And
lunch.
the first objectives come out, and they're control objectives. And I'm all of a sudden I got these two guys going like, hey, you know, you make a deal for this and this, and they're trying and they're all trying to like make deals for planets in my system. And I'm the extra.
Yeah.
It was like within about 10 minutes of the game, I was like, I made a mistake.
I mean, I don't know how Pecan would have done much better if you had that set up. Like,
I mean, at least I could have. I mean, the thing about it is, my slice was influence rich, which was actually really useful as extra.
Right.
But it was not resource rich, and so it was really tough to put out plastic.
Yeah.
And so if I was a con and I was wheeling and dealing and I could trade with everybody, I would have been sitting on a lot of trade goods. I could have put out ships. I could have held my own. Even if I turtled, which I turtled as the extra, I turtled, but it didn't help me put points on the board.
Yeah.
And so that was really a kind of a problem for me. And I think being Mahawked, especially because a lot of the races that we played were POK races. I mean, we had Titans.
Right.
The Yssarl was one of the original races, but we had Titans, Bull Wraith, Argent, and then we had Jolnar, so another
very strong race,
and the L1Z1X.
And then you had Nas, right?
And the Nazroka. Yes.
Yeah.
So the Nazroka person was sitting next to the Titans player. They ended up swapping supports.
Wow.
I ended up eventually swapping supports with the Argent because I really didn't want to swap supports. But this whole support swap meta was kind of a big deal, and I'm going to explain why. When we talk about it. But it was a rough game. I was frustrated. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. At one point, I was really I was behind. I was actually in last place. And I was struggling to put points on the board, mainly because meeting the objectives involved aggression, and the turtles aren't exactly aggressive. Right. The only aggressive moves I did was use Diplo to take over planets that had nobody on it. I snuck a planet from the Titans that he had a DMZ planet, and I'm like, that's going to be mine. But it was a tough game. Everybody played really well.
So what happened? So I know who won.
Yes.
So let's get there.
Yeah. So basically it at one point the Nazroka player was in the lead at I think 8 points. There was another player, the Yssarl, was in the lead. Well, she was in the lead at 7. The Yssarl player was at 6. Everybody else was like at around 5 or 4. I was like at 3. It was one of those situations where it was like, okay, the Nazroka player, she was doing really well, and and she was point lead. So I tried.
What was her strategy? I'm curious. What was her strategy? Kind of what was she? Was she going
she didn't have to worry about the Titans. She didn't hold Mechatol. She didn't have to worry about the Titans. She mostly was able to score her objectives in her own slice. And in some cases she was able to score it off of between the Titans. The Yssarl player was a diplomat enough to make it so that they kind of weren't at each other's throats. So but before you know it, I mean, it was like everybody looked around and she was like, oh my god, Nazroka player is winning, right? I still try to keep the Titans in check as much as possible. And you know, and then of course when I realized that my game was not going well, it was getting late. So I appreciated that she was winning, and I said, you know what, this girl has, you know, this woman, I'm not gonna say this female player has made it, and I don't mean to make a distinction about that, but it was, you know, TI is, there's a lot more men than women, and I was like, she made it this far and she's winning and all this stuff. I'm like, you know what, I do truly support her bid for the throne.
Yeah.
And I in honoring that, I offered her my support, which I still had.
Oh, you didn't give it to Argent?
Not at first. I offered it to her. But she, being honorable, she didn't want to be handed anything. And being that she was in the lead, she actually declined my offer of the support. And I had actually asked the FFG guys, because I was curious. I'm like, you can decline. Like, yeah, you know, like just because you give somebody a support, they don't have to take it. So she declined it. Because she wanted to score the points by herself, and I'm like, hey, you know, respect, but I wanted to kingmaker, and there was a talk at the table about that. Because everybody looked around and they were like, no, blah blah blah, and actually the SCPT guys, Matt and Hunter, were there, and they were watching. And I actually, they were watching our game, and I turned around, like, guys, what, you know, like, what is wrong with king making? I was like, oh, no king making at the table. Everyone's like, no king making. That's not the thing that we do. And I'm like, what's wrong with king? I'm like, king making is a perfectly fine play. I asked them, and they didn't, at the time, they didn't tell me, mainly because I think the FFG guys had told everybody who was not playing to not participate in the game. So I turned and said, what do you guys think? You know, and they were like, we have no comment at this time, you know.
We will tell you on our podcast.
They even mentioned, they're like, we had an episode about this, you know. When I later asked them, they agreed with me thematically. Support for the throne is literally that. It is I support your bid for the. I know people use it as a little easy point grab, but it was truly they told me, I mean, you know, I think it was Matt who said, yeah, no, we think that's, or no, Hunter told me, yeah, we think that's totally cool, that you know, you can just king make somebody. There's nothing wrong with king make plays. So I'm glad, you know, and I told them about how, you know, personally, I don't think support swaps are great. I don't mind supports that we play with them, but the house rule of not swapping. Anyway, you know, the table did not agree with me about king making.
Interesting.
However, it's around 8 o'clock. And you know, we know it's the final round. We know it's the final round. Everybody's.
So you were playing from 9:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night.
8:45 is when the game ended.
Oh my gosh! So 12 hours. Oof.
Yeah, almost. It was 11-ish hours. Yeah.
Oof.
And so it was getting late, and we know it's the final round, right? We know it's the final round. And everybody's fighting, and Ansh, the guy who was playing the Argent next to me, I swapped supports with him, and man, that guy, he had a plan, because he got himself all the way up to, I think, 8 or 9 points in that round. And I think he could have scored. No, he got to 8 points, and he could have scored the 2-pointer for winning. So he was up there by the end of that round. So everybody was win slaying, right? Like,
who had
everybody.
Mechatol? Was Mechatol in play?
Mechatol was in play. It was taken at first by the Titans. Then it went to Volwraith.
Okay.
And the Volwraith player sort of kind of started going out. As a matter of fact, the Volwraith player ripped into my slice at one point eventually. But Mechatol was not a kind of a significant portion of that game. And so it was a very, very, you know, tough game, and people were win slaying each other. I mean, people all of a sudden, like that last round, it was like, stop this person. Mainly, everybody tried to stop the Nazroka player. Was it home system taking? They were going for her home system. So she smartly shrunk back and took into her home system. But then when she realized that she really needed to score some points, or I guess maybe she had it part of the plan, she did start to push out a little bit into the Yasaro player to try to score some points. But the funny thing is, she was playing a game where she was trying to get Obsidian, the relic, which allows her to get the secret objective. Well, the funny thing is, there were only two. By the way, that was a crazy game. There were only 2 relics left,
Wow.
and there were only 2 green, industrial exploration things left. And I think she was trying to score one of the shards so that she could, get the relic.
Right.
She pulled it. It wasn't it. And so then she ended up finding a shard, one of the from the export from the what's it called?
DET?
Yes, from DET.
Mm-hmm.
Which was great because then she turned it in, and what she got was one of the 2 relics, which was not obsidian. It was Prophet's Tears. And it was like,
wow.
Right. Eventually, she got obsidian, which was the last one. She actually was able to pull it off and got obsidian.
Yeah.
And then of course she got her secret objective and went and started looking to try to find if she could score it. And then all of a sudden she started making moves.
Yeah.
And everybody's rooting for her. We're like, you know what? She's got it, because it was obvious that if she scores the 10 points, she'll win.
Right.
Well, she's doing everything. She's fighting really hard to score the point, and so eventually she does it. She scored one of her secret objectives. And the thing is, she scored it against the Titans player, forgetting that by attacking him to score her secret objective.
Oh no.
So there's a moment where she scores it and everyone's like, ah.
Yeah. What was the secret objective? What was the secret objective? Was it destroy a flagship or?
No, I think it was I think it was something along the lines of either like, I think it was like turn the fleet. Yeah, it was precision, fight with precision, where it was like, so she had a bunch of destroyers that went out and so that worked, and so she scored it off of the Titans player because he was the closest one she could do that to. And then everyone was like clapping, and then all of a sudden the Titans player goes, "Oh no!" By doing that, so then it was like everybody was like, oh my God. And then we look around and we're like, and when the Argent player had been win slain.
Did she realize? She didn't realize that, did she?
She didn't realize. And so we look around, and all of a sudden we look around and we go, this is going to go to one more round.
Yeah.
And Josh is standing there Josh Mash is standing there holding the trophy, and he's going, guys, I'm going to cry. Because it's like, and so I'm like, and of course I had actually, looked, and I realized that I had worked my way from nothing from very little points to actually, I was down to like, I had, after I scored my secrets and blah, 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 I was like, I would have gotten 8 points. So if it had gone to one more round, it was really at that point, anybody's game, truly anybody's game at that point. But that meant one more round at 8:00 p.m.
Yeah.
In an 8-player game. And so at that point, everybody looked around the table, and we're all just like, look, I stood up and I got dramatic, and I'm like, guys, she earned it. Like, and even the Titans player was like, Elam, he was like, he's like, I gotta drive home, blah, blah, blah. He's like, she earned it. He's like, is everybody okay with me giving her back
wow,
the support? And I'm like, oh, are we all okay with king making now?
Oh my God.
And so we went around the table to make sure nobody, because the thing is, Ansh, the Argent player, also could have gotten that support and won. Which means that Elam, the Titans player, could have king made the Argent player as well. And so it was kind of one of those situations where it was simply him being like, respect to the Nasroka player. And we went around the table saying, are we all okay with giving it to Bethany? You'll see her. She was interviewed on the FFG thing. And we all agreed. We all were like, we all bow down to our new galactic emperor, we agreed. And so he gave her the support, and she won the game.
That's amazing.
And thankfully it didn't go into another round.
Yeah.
But it was very, very, and then that's why I asked them afterwards. I asked Hunter and Matt, and they said, that's perfectly fine. That's what it's there for, right? And I really think that there's nothing wrong with king making. I would have rather given her my points, which if I had given her my support, I think that wouldn't have been an issue. She would have just, it was a very crazy ending. Very crazy.
That's amazing. Ending. Good job, man. Good job. So how does it feel like to be a finalist?
It feels, I mean, look, the swag I got, I'm really happy. I did not even expect to make it to the final game, to be honest with you.
Not at all.
I expected to get past the first round, at least, or the first day. But when I ended up in a game full of sharks, I was like, I'll be lucky if I even make it to the second day, because at that point I'm like, it's tough, right? TI is not an easy game. So just to make it to the final 8 players, I felt really good. And I don't want to say I didn't expect to win, because I really do think I could have won. I really think if I had played differently, if I had picked a better faction, there's a lot of if true.
Well, if you just asked everybody for a support for the throne, I think you could have won easily.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it would have been
just ask
simple.
people. That's how it goes.
Yeah. I used the spin to win hero of the extra to score a point. And I really kind of pulled it from being really low point, but I mean, it was I just feel really good about making it into the final 8, Chris. I really do. Awesome. I felt really good about that. I felt really good about who won. I really think that it was great to have a female player win the tournament. Actually, and her husband was there too. He was playing Joel Nar.
Nice.
Adam, he was a great guy too, and it was just it was a really good game. And actually, Josh Massey commented on how it was just such a clean game.
Yeah.
Everybody there was very, very what's the word? They were all class acts. They were all class acts.
Sounds respectful. It doesn't, especially with the ending, it doesn't sound very cutthroat, which is nice. And that is another element of TI, which I think people overlook, is there is a diplomacy practicality to the game that
makes a difference.
It does. It's not all about beating each other up, especially if you're Titans, beating people up. But there is a pragmatic, hey, we got to end this game, or we respect your playing style, so you deserve a point.
It was really that. It was really that. It was like, we respect everything. She worked, and the fact that she didn't take anything easy. She wasn't. She really took everything. She wasn't handed anything. We all respected that. We were like, you know what? She really got to the top on her own. And it was really, really a good 8-player game.
Nice.
Regardless of how frustrated I was with my pick, I did ultimately end up having fun with it.
So what was the trade meta like there? That always differs for me game to game. How did they? How was that? What was the formula there?
X-1 was pretty popular. X-1 was mostly the trade meta, and I think there were I'm the one who actually towards the end of the game I picked trade. I don't know if it was a smart move, but I was like, nobody gets refreshed. Because I was in the back. I was
right.
I just didn't want to help anybody else because they were all up. Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
No, but so I was saying, like, it was the trade meta was X-1. People were fine with trading with each other.
Were people washing each other a lot with it?
No, that was different. So it was like, if nobody gave anything away. They played very much like one of our friends, Pam. Nothing was free. So washing trade goods, it was not like, sure. It was like, trade good. I'll wash your trade. I'll wash your commodities.
Because I find our games, our home games, swing wildly either way. Where we have games where nobody does any of that. And lately, people are like, I got all these commodities. I'll just do something with them. So. There were no handouts. They played very, 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 very selfishly. Were there any different, like, big major differences with playing there as opposed to our home games, like rules wise?
Well, obviously the support swap thing. Right? I mean, everything was by the rules. I mean, we had the rules reference. Anytime somebody had a question about something, they checked the manual, checked the rules reference and made sure, and it was all by the book. Obviously, like I said, no codices, which was kind of a real especially because there were some things that were, the codices obviously fixed some things and stuff like that. So that was kind of a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But we did play with the the living rules. So anything that was updated in the living rules applied to the game.
Okay.
But other than that, it was all by the book.
Yeah. So how much did you cheat to get into the finals?
A lot. No. It was
how many trade goods did you have up your sleeve? No.
Yeah, no, it was actually because of the fact that we had judges around.
Okay,
Not that I I honestly think that if you're cheating, you're just cheating yourself.
Oh yeah.
You're not really you're not really.
No, cheating at TI is stupid, and you shouldn't do it.
But the only thing is, there were times, and I would always check with the table as in any TI game, where it's like, oh shoot, I forgot to do this thing. Is that okay with everybody? And people would be like, yeah, it's fine. And it was very friendly. There was only one time where I was declined, and I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, that move, that strategy card was popped a while ago, and I was like, I really did not notice. No, I was like, okay, fine, no big deal.
Right.
But for the most part, retcon was okay. But we had judges watching. And I don't think anybody cheated. I think everybody played a really, really tight game of TI.
Nice. Yeah. So what are your final takeaways?
My final takeaways, and I love playing TI because of the fact that I do learn lessons from it. Never despair.
Yeah.
Never despair. In one game, in the Mahak game, I did feel a moment of despair, and I ended up pulling out a win. When I was extra, I definitely felt despair because I just had a bad round. Like I had a bad game. It was also not just the draft and not just the position, but I had bad luck. I actually pulled the two worst relics in the game. So I got 2 relics, and of the 2 relics that I got, which I was hoping one would be, Mob Worlds would have been great. I would have loved that. One of the relics I got was the Stellar Converter.
Oh, right.
Which didn't help me. The other one I got was Dominus Orb.
No, yeah.
And I was sitting there going like, man, like I'm just not catching a break. So I had some really, really poor luck. But I forget why I was mentioning all this. But don't
despair. Don't despair.
Don't despair. Yeah, but the fact that from that position, when I really just started to get into the spirit of the game again and not get upset at woe is me, I was able to get a lot of points and actually, not end at, low points. I ended up right with everybody. So I really was like, why, there's no point in despairing. Just play a good game of TI, even if you're losing. It's a galactic community.
Right.
The game rebalances itself through agendas and things like that. That's the agenda phase is really a rebalancing, situation. That's what's great about the agenda phase is everybody can meet and go, hey, this guy's not doing so hot. Like we don't mind giving it to him, that kind of thing. So, I'd never despair. That's one thing, and never let them see you sweat either. Like that's the other thing is that I did get frustrated a little bit, and it showed, and I felt bad about it because I was like, I didn't want to be that guy, but I was like, this is really upsetting.
I've had those games every time I play. So
I was upset, and I looped a little bit about the fact that I should have played a different faction, Mahak or Hakan. Mahak because they were a POK race, Hakan because it would have made that trading with everybody easier. But I was really also upset that I just had to deal with the Titans player. Same player.
Dude, I'm always upset by the Titans. So.
Again, and of course, of all the things being extra between, PDSs don't mean anything to the Titans,
right? And
they don't mean anything to the Yargin. So it was like, cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that there was nothing else that I could have done better. There were a lot of things I could have done better in the game itself. And that's TI. That's TI.
Absolutely.
So never despair. Never let them see you sweat. Just play a game of TI, win or lose. It's about the drama. It's about. And I know all this stuff. I just need to remind myself occasionally that these are the lessons. But that was a good game, and I walked away with some cool swag.
Nice.
I can't wait to get the dice that when they arrive and put them on the table and see what they look like. And now but yeah, man, it was great. 25th anniversary. It was very, very cool. The only thing I wish they did was maybe record the game like SCPT did, or live or broadcast it or something.
Yeah.
And I talked to FFG and they said that they wanted to do that, but they weren't sure that the tech they had would have been able to do it. I'm surprised they didn't ask Matt and Hunter to commentate it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that would have been cool. Although
I don't think
in retrospect, I'm glad they didn't, because I don't know how comfortable I would have been about Matt and Hunter criticizing my play, because it wasn't
they would also have to sit there for what, 12 hours. Like,
yeah, right.
I can't imagine on hour 6 the banter would be that great.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But it was I look, overall I had fun. It was a great event. I feel honored that I was a part of it.
Yeah.
I feel honored that I made it to the final 8. We actually, the one little surprise they gave us was the mats that were all laid out, they were still there. They had us, so there were 8 mats still laid out. They had us sign all the mats, and every one of us walked away with another mat signed by everybody.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah. So as commemorative. So now I have 2 mats.
So when you're a famous TI player, you'll have, or you can sell that on eBay for $10.
Yes, for a grand total of, I mean, I think the mats themselves cost a lot more than that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how much, but yes, I'm sure.
But you marked them up, so they're not brand new.
Yeah, right.
So they're used.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll sell anything on eBay. I mean, I even thought about selling my TI commissioned art on eBay, and then I changed my mind. I said, I'm too much of a fan to do it. But yeah. But it was exhausting. It was exhausting, but it was a good kind of exhausting. And I told myself after I was done, on my flight home, like, yeah, man, I need to take it easy on TI. Yeah. But I believe we're playing on Wednesday.
We are. That's why for my first
2 days from now,
maybe we should play something like Merchants and Marauders or even Candyland. But we'll do it again. We'll do it all again.
It just goes to show, because I always tell myself, I'm like, I'm gonna give it a break until somebody says TI. I go, yes. No, that was me on Friday. I got beat. Somebody beat the crap out of me that Friday, and I was like, man, I gotta just ease off this game. And then we had a great game the next Sunday, and I loved it. And I'm like, God, I could play this game forever. So it's definitely an experience. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to our game that's coming up. Yeah. I'm not sure what we're gonna want to do with it. I think as I mentioned to the group, I'm gonna play Hakan, because the one time I played Hakan was a 5-player game where trade was hardly ever picked, and I had a bad experience, and now I feel like I need to get better with the Hakan.
All right, that sounds good. A little revenge.
Yeah, it was me. It was mostly me. Like I realized, Chris, that when I was beating myself up about this game, it wasn't because I lost. Or I didn't win, rather, I should say. It wasn't because I didn't win. Winning wasn't the issue. It was that I looked at myself. I could have done better.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm talking about.
Every game I play, you're always
the drive home when you're like,
yeah.
If I had just.
Oh, exactly. If I had just not sat next to Titans every game I play, I would do really, really well at this thing.
Really, really well. Yeah. Titans are tough. You got to keep them in check. I learned that again.
You just, yeah. That's why we had a fun game that Sunday, because we banned all the factions that are annoying, and we just
played a really nice even kill. Yeah. I mean, those factions, just you need to keep them in check. And if you have a player that is not doing their part in, especially if they're the neighbors of that player, it can be a little frustrating. It can be a little frustrating to be like, in my second game, I was the one who was like, guys, you got to do something about this guy. Like, please, I'm over here on the other side of the map, and I've had people kind of getting in my way, and I had to research Lightwave just so that I could get to the other side of the map. And it was frustrating to be like, please, can we do something about this guy?
No, but you do you do something. I got my own thing going on.
Right. So that's TI. That's TI.
Cool. Well, thanks, Mo, for detailing your adventures, and I think we'll do a podcast shortly on another topic.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Actually, I do have a couple of topics that I would like to do. I think one of the things I thought about was you know, we did talk about, we've already done a topic about support for the throne and how we feel about it. I think, you know, so I don't think we need to do another one, but I really do think that this idea of king making is something worth talking about. Because I think it looks like there are people on one side or the other. There are some
Well,
people
king making goes way beyond supports. I mean, I think in your instance, it was revolved around supports, but we obviously have, I mean, even the game we played on Sunday, Kine was like, I don't do king making, because somebody was saying, hey, why don't you go take care of who was winning? I forgot who was winning, and he was like, no, I just don't do that. And I think it's a valid,
and that's your choice. But I also think that if somebody in the game wants to king make, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh no,
I don't think that should be jeered at all, you know. So that's one thing, and I'd be interested to hear, you know, from anybody who's watching this podcast, what they think of king making. Because it appears, you know, I was surprised, I was shocked, frankly, when at one point the table was against me about king making. I was like, that's perfectly legitimate. I don't see what's wrong with it. It wasn't even going to help her win. In other words, it wasn't a win support for the throne. It was you get another point to get closer to victory support for the throne. And if anything, it would have put more heat on her than she already had.
That's why I think it's smart to decline that, because that immediately people will
just the heat doubles, right? So so maybe it was smart on her part to decline it for that reason. But I also think that people who were kind of against the king making play there, I don't know. I don't think that was all that. I don't think that was all necessary at all. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to do an episode about that. And I'm actually excited about the game we've got coming up. It's a home game, so to speak, rather than a
real home game, my house.
Rather than a public venue game. And I know there are some people who prefer home games over public venue games. And I'd be interested to hear. I think it'd be interesting to do an episode about that as well.
We can talk about it. We can absolutely talk about that.
So there are a couple topics, there are a couple things, because I mean, at the tournament, that was a very public game. You know, it was a lot of talking. There was a lot of people around the table. It was less intimate.
Well, I think it's interesting. The dynamics are interesting, and I think that's a good topic. Maybe we'll do that soon, because like I was saying, you know, we have both. We do both. But in our boardroom games here in Arlington, Virginia, we do have a quasi-public venue where we have a lot of regulars, but basically anybody can sign up and join and come. And so you have a lot of feeling out people. So some games you get in, and we know how Josh plays, we know how Kine plays, we know how Jonathan plays. Like, we all know each other's style and we adapt to it, and it's fun sometimes. But then once in a while you'll get a new person, and sometimes, like, I have, you know, they're overly aggressive, or sometimes they don't know how to play very well.
And that's what I had to deal with a lot at GenCon, which was interesting, because you had to size up all these people from game one. You know, you were like, wow, this guy's aggressive. How do I get this guy off my back? Right. You know, whereas if you go into a game like we do with our players, and I'm like, I already know this player is aggressive. You know, and we're aware of it, and it made it a lot, in many ways, it made our games a lot easier because there's some predictability there. And it made the games at GenCon harder, because you really had to figure people out real quick if you wanted to succeed and be able to deal with them correctly, diplomatically.
Cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate our conversation, Mo, and thanks for everybody for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll be back very, very soon with some additional episodes and some fun stuff.
Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Sure.